Welcome back to Mid-Maryland Votes. Tonight we sit down with Mason Carter, District 5 representative and the youngest county council member in Frederick County and in Maryland. We talk about what brought someone his age into public office, the changing politics of Frederick County, the rise of democratic-socialism, and why unaffiliated voters may ultimately decide where this county goes next. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I'm your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we have a very distinguished visitor today for another time, Mason Carter, back on the show. Mason, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark and Ethan. It's great to be with you.
Mason, I got a question for you to start it off with. A scale of 1 to 10, how sick are you of hearing that you are the youngest commissioner in the state of Maryland? I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how sick are you of it?
You know, you're absolutely correct that I've heard it a lot. But now I think with this election and coming up in 2026, this year, I'm not 18 anymore. I'm 22, so I'm all old and grizzled. So I'm sure I won't be hearing that too much anymore.
All right, let me bring you down to earth, Mason. At 22 years old, you are still the youngest elected official in the entire state of Maryland, which, by the way, kudos to you. I am impressed by the fact that a 22-year-old even wants to get involved. I mean, it's just kudos to you.
Not to mention that for Mark and I, we consider anyone under 30 a child still. So
right. Now, Mason, I do have a 22-year-old, but that's the second set of kids I have. I have a kid that could have had you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I've met very many people on the campaign trail who have told me that I could either be their son or their grandson. So I understand.
Happy to have you. You've got some great opinions, and you are not afraid of sharing them, which is awesome especially for a politician nowadays.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I try to make my opinion known, which gets me in trouble sometimes. But I believe that if we don't stand up for what we believe in, then we'll fall for anything.
And everyone says this. I mean, all across the political spectrum is they want politicians who will say what they mean, do what they say, and just be normal people instead of being politicians, I guess. So,
absolutely.
And speaking of which, you actually had a particularly interesting election season. You won your primary to now run for re-election as a county commissioner for Frederick County, but you also won the election to be on the Central Committee, the Republican Central Committee for Frederick County. So this time around, one, I guess, why did you choose to take on both roles? I mean, you know, just one is almost a full-time job. The second one is also very involved.
Yeah, it's so what I've heard from members of the current Central Committee and prior Central Committees is a very thankless role. However, I believe that there are certain things that our party can do better. And I like to be able to be a part of that bettering of our party. Obviously, in Frederick County, we have gone from a ruby red to purple, and now start to wonder if we are purple anymore. The numbers have really shifted against us. And I think that we're at a crossroads right now that if we don't catch it before it goes too bad, we might not have an opportunity to catch it in the future.
So what do you attribute that to? You're right. We've gone from red to purple, and we probably are barely purple. We might be blue by now as a county. Yep. And, you know, I mean, did the Republicans just fall asleep, or are they not keeping up with the changing electorate?
I think that we can attribute this to many things. I think that our messaging on certain issues have become old. And that isn't exactly a county problem, but maybe trickle down from the federal level and the state level. Coming back to the age issue, I think that we've seen primarily Republicans in big time roles such as Congress and the Senate serve into their 80s or even 90s, and sometimes you can lose sight when you're at that age of problems of today. And obviously, we understand that the problems of today will not be solved by the solutions from yesterday. This is a whole new world and a whole new economy, and it's going to take bright new ideas to fix those. And so I think that more than our party is able to adopt and adapt to our new world, the new county that we live in, we're going to do a whole lot better. But I'll also say we've seen tremendous amounts of growth from the city of Frederick. And we understand that the city of Frederick is very, very blue. And so the blue breeds blue. And so as the city grows, that grows more and more, Democrat based. And so that has really taken over the rural parts of our county, such as Thurmont, Emmitsburg, Monrovia, and then even Brunswick was rural not too long ago. That's starting to change.
And of course, on the liberal side of the spectrum, when you talk about, the young individuals that are coming up and starting to take over society and make decisions, what many of them are saying is they are throwing their hat in with the DSA, the Democrat-Socialist of America, which had a phenomenal, for better or worse, a phenomenal election this time around nationally throughout the state, but even within Frederick County. So if that's what kind of the liberal side of things is saying in regards to the new messaging, et cetera, is to turn to socialism, from the Republican side of things, what are you thinking of in regards to the messaging, the solutions that are needed now?
Yeah. It's sort of the same messaging that I came to the people of Frederick County with 4 years ago, that young people and really people all across our county, whether they're Republican or Democrat, they want the government out of their life. And so as we're talking about with the DSA and with our younger Republicans now, we're on either pole, right? The DSA and our younger Democrat colleagues, they want government in their life. The Zohran Mamdani quote is, whether there's no problem too big for government to solve, which obviously I cannot disagree with that more. I think that a lot of problems are rooted in government getting involved in the first place. A lot of the problems that we have to fix come from interference from government in the first place. So I think that if we continue to really embrace positions that put freedom and liberty at the forefront, and government control in the back seat, we're going to do real well.
You defined a fundamental difference between conservatives and liberals. One is that one wants government to leave them alone. The other one wants more government to take care of more things, as you said. But these progressive socialist candidates did fairly well, even in Frederick County. So my question to you is this: do you think that this is an opportunity for conservative Republicans to regain some kind of standing among the voters of Frederick County? Because a lot of the Democrats are going to reject socialism.
Yeah. I've had a number of conversations with really Democrat voters, people who have voted Democrat their entire life, and maybe they voted Republican once, maybe in their entire life, and they're not on board with this Democrat, if you want to call it Democrat, this socialism that we're seeing take over our country, obviously with El Sayed in Michigan, Mamdani in New York, and even right here in Frederick County, a self-proclaimed socialist won in the county council district that encompasses the city of Frederick. And so we don't need to look to neighboring jurisdictions and states to see this sort of radicalization of the Democrat voters. It's right in our backyard. And as far as how we beat it, it's difficult. When people get that extreme in their way of thinking, it's very difficult to change their mind. I think really what it's going to take is for these Democrat socialists to win certain seats and then show voters just how bad it gets.
And on the national level, one thing that the Democratic establishment has been doing is they formed a coalition called the Common Ground Coalition, where they're going grassroots, state by state, and getting local Democrat politicians to say, all right, let's finally truly move away from socialism light, which is what I think the Democratic Party has been for over 20 years now, and find the common grounds. I presume that may even mean with Republicans. And in order to basically solve the problems that are driving young Democrat voters into the arms of the DSA. And I guess one of the questions that I've always had in regards to this is these young voters that are voting for socialism. Do they truly, you are a peer of these very voters, both demographically, age-wise. Do they not know the history of socialism. It's been around for 110 years now. It's had a unanimous history amongst dozens of countries. Are they unaware of the history of socialism?
You really have to ask yourself, with some of the things that are coming out of our high schools and our colleges and universities, with just how far left some of these folks have gotten. You have to ask yourself, do they study history? Have they seen what happens in Cuba, in Venezuela, in the Soviet Union? These ideas have been tried time and time again, and every single time has failed. Now, obviously, what we're seeing now is people talking about the Nordic model with Norway, and how that's somehow the same thing that they're that they're talking about. And it's just not the case at all. I really think that the voters just need to see it not work here to believe it, because obviously there's a scapegoat, right? That wasn't real socialism, or that wasn't real communism, or that the new thing that they're pushing now is a kind of socialism. What we need to see and show voters is that what they're advocating for is not working. It's not working. It won't work. It never will work.
And the other thing they need to point out is that this is not socialism. They're talking about communism.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face reality. They're talking about seizing the means of production by the state. That is full-blown communism. And it's kind of like these Democratic politicians are playing, like a wolf in sheep's clothing. They want to be elected as a democratic socialist, but really their ideas are way more radical than I think most Democratic moderates could tolerate.
Off my back, out of my pocket. That was a Reagan quote. I can't imagine. I can't imagine thinking the way that they do. I typically think that one of my abilities that allows me to work across the aisle with my Democrat colleagues is that I can place myself in other people's shoes and really understand why they may think something. But with our friends at the DSA, it makes it a whole lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm. So last month, I was down in Nashville and visiting some family down there, and we went to the Nashville Tomato Festival.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, we've all got nice festivals, but the Tomato Festival, I think I prefer my area's Peach Festival. But when we were there, as we were leaving, I noticed off to the side there were a couple people with a booth that oftentimes you'd usually identify with being either Buddhists or Christians, but it wasn't. It was an organization that called themselves the Revolutionary Socialists of America, not the DSA, the RSA. And so I said, hold on a moment, to the people I was with. I said, go across the street, I'll catch up with you. And I went and talked for a couple minutes, not long, but a couple minutes with those two individuals. And I heard their pitch, which essentially is just regular socialism, the same slogans that are used here, no difference. And I said, let me stop you for 1 second and just say that I'm from Maryland. And in Maryland, we've been going down this route that you're talking about for over 10 years, over 15 years, actually. And so we've had the redistribution of wealth. It's occurring right now. You can see that the wealthier are actually on average getting more poor in comparison to the amount of income in the bottom 40% of income earners. In other words, the socialist dream. And I said, and everything in Maryland is worse. Maryland is now the fourth most moved out of state in America. And I said, so just know that that your ideas are being tried in multiple places. The results are the same everywhere. And it's easy to be a proponent of this in a state like Nashville, which has all the benefits of all the exact opposite policies. State of Maryland government becomes more and more dysfunctional with all those failed audits, with the money missing, and of course their programs just not working, having negative results, including with what's going on in the public schools. It is putting a strain on the counties. And obviously that is what you are dealing with directly. How are you seeing the future of Frederick, the challenges that Frederick County is having to deal with as a result of the things that are changing and coming down from the state level?
Yeah, what an appropriate question. I was just downtown Frederick today, and I ran into a few folks that I know from the district, actually, that were down in the city. And they both asked me about the same thing, and they were asking me about solar. And I'm sure Mark will know where I'm going, because he serves in a municipality that the state has completely usurped local control when it comes to solar panels and where they can go. And the county and our municipalities can do nothing about it. Unfortunately, because we want to be net zero by 2050, 20, whatever it may be, some absolutely unattainable goal.
Completely unattainable.
That's only going to cost us millions of dollars, by the way. They are usurping and preempting local control to place solar panels on agricultural land with absolutely no guardrails put up by the county or the municipality. And so I've had a number of folks up in my district in northern Frederick County come to me with a letter in the mail that they got about a possible solar farm abutting their property. And they're asking me, well, how can we stop it? Because it's just not an appropriate place for a solar farm. And every time I have to sit them down and tell them, you know what? Most of the time, I agree with you. I agree with you. It makes no sense to place a solar farm in this particular area. However, the state of Maryland has told us point blank that we know better than you. We know better than you, and you can't do anything about it. From where they're placed to the regulations that govern them, we cannot do a darn thing. And I'm really afraid that this is only the start. I think that real soon, if we continue down the same path with the state of Maryland, that they're going to render county government and municipal government useless. That's certainly the direction they're going in, and I certainly hope that our team in Annapolis can put up a good fight and stop that from happening.
Well, I think the fight has to include litigation. I think once you start suing the state for overstepping their bounds, they start, pulling it in a little bit. But what we know from, from tax and spend Democrats is there is no limit. There is no limit to the control and power that they want to assert over the people. Mason, you talked earlier about the cost of living and how much it's impacting younger people. And I think that really is fueling this exodus to the socialist side of the house. These young people just don't see any hope of being able to afford a home, being able to afford all that stuff. So, I mean, is it more like envy and desire on these people's part? Are they truly, are they underemployed? What's going on with these young people that they don't see the opportunities that exist here in America?
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head, and it certainly could be that. And I think that the divide and where we go politically, whether, for liberty and freedom and being able to choose what you want to do without interjection from government or just full-blown socialism, is that they don't believe that there is opportunity, or that the opportunity to buy a home and to make a living is slim. Now, I understand it is very difficult, very, very difficult as a young person today in our county to buy a home and raise a family. It's very expensive. I don't have any kids. I'm not married quite yet. And I understand those sort of things are very expensive. However, where the ideological difference really comes from is how you respond to that. Whether that means that you need to really get down, get a job, and work really hard so you can pull yourself up, or do you sulk in that fear of never being able to afford anything or live anywhere, and instead do nothing, complain, and then turn to an ideology that's been filled everywhere else? So I think that's really where we need to hit the voters and to tell them that it is actually possible. It's just going to take hard work with anything.
And you might have to equip yourself. I mean, if you get a 4-year degree in gender studies, you're not going to make $160,000 a year. You're going to make 20 grand as a barista at Starbucks. But if you actually put that money into, say, HVAC or plumbing or carpentry, one of the kids that grew up with my son, kid bought his own house. He's an HVAC specialist. He just bought a house. These kids have to take responsibility for the fact that they fell for the college education will get you that $160K a year, and it's not doing it.
And absolutely. And I'm not so sure why we have lost sight that college is an investment, and you're looking for a return on that investment.
There's no ROI for those kind of degrees.
Why are we going to go ahead and get so deep into debt without an opportunity for employment to get not only get out of that debt, but then to get ahead? Obviously, then you have a lot of folks that are looking for debt forgiveness for their schooling. Well, I tell you what, I've lost a good bit of money in the stock market, and I'm still looking for my forgiveness.
The thing is that I think you guys bring up a great point, which is that the opportunities that young Americans are seeing is diminished in some ways. And it's not completely irrational. Yale University, the president of Yale, and a couple months before that, the president of Dartmouth, and obviously it was coordinated. So universities on a national level are trying to fix this, maybe, but they're putting their words behind it at least. And they actually issued letters saying that we are sorry, and that one of the things that we, the universities of America, need to change is we need to start judging the success of our programs, of our institutions, by whether or not our graduates are getting jobs that are paying the bills. In other words, they essentially, without outright saying it, are saying that, yes, we have gone out of our way to hand out degrees that have no return on investment. That's not the way it used to be. You know, that is an example of what young adults are literally talking about. And then when it comes to housing is expensive. But here's the thing. In Maryland, there are so many regulations on housing that one individual is telling me that it raises the price of houses by 30%. So if you just took these extra regulations that Maryland puts on, that West Virginia doesn't, that Pennsylvania doesn't, that Virginia does not, housing would be somewhere to 15 to 20% less expensive for that reason alone. And but to your point is how many young adults who are suffering from this know that these causes were artificially created. It's not a problem of the quote system. It's a problem of government officials making bad choices, and we're the ones who voted them in.
What you just said brings me back to a question that was posed to the county council candidates in a forum 4 years ago. And they were asking, what structural change would you make to government? And I was very quick to say that I'm not so sure it's a structure thing. And I'm sure that there are structural changes we can make. But really where our problem lies is in our people problem, the people that we continue to elect to these offices. I'm sure we've all heard the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, the inverse, if it's broke, we need to fix it. And we need to fix the people that have been running our counties, running our nation. And to come back to housing, you are preaching to the choir, Ethan. Obviously, I know a bunch of people who I went to school with who are now living in places like West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and then commuting into Frederick and to other places in Maryland for the good wages, taking those back home to their affordable areas. And as you said, absolutely, there are so many dollars that are accrued by developers and home builders before a shovel even hits the ground. That's passed right along to the end buyer because of regulations put down by the county of Frederick County, and I'm sure in some part Washington County. I believe that in my last number that I got, it was somewhere around $60,000 before a shovel is put in the ground, which makes every single home for sale in Frederick County $60,000 more expensive than it really should be. So a house that may be attainable for a young family at $300,000 is now on the market for $360,000. Then add on the bidding war, given that it is a seller's market right now, and you're paying $380,000. Right, so already right there, you added $80,000 to the cost of a home, and then add in the bad rates right now. The families are really having to work hard, and unfortunately, we haven't had politicians in office that are willing to take a look at the issue, change it, and make it better for the people of our county.
So, Mason, you are talking about the future and the future of Frederick County. So let's get in a time machine and go ahead 10, 15 years. Okay. You're still in office, or you're even higher in office. Maybe you took Jessica Fitzwater's job from her. I don't know. But where is the county of Frederick, and how do you think they're doing in 10 or 15 years if the policies do not change, and if they do change?
Yeah, I think that we're looking at Montgomery County and PG County creeping right up to Frederick County if nothing changes. I will say to quash the rumors, I don't want Ms. Fitzwater's job. I would not want to be county executive. I do not envy her. I know for sure I'm running one more term as with this campaign, what will happen. But beyond that, will come at a later date. I think that, again, we're at a crossroads. 2026 can be the difference. How we vote this year can be a difference between where we are in 10 to 15 years. Do we keep the character of Frederick County that we know and love right now? Or do we continue on this path, do nothing, and become Montgomery County, PG County, or Howard County with the way that they've grown, with the way that they've grown their budget, and the way that they tax their people?
You know, which path we take depends on these independent voters. It's the biggest block of people who are growing. People are rejecting the Democrats, but they can't come over the Republicans for whatever reason, ideological or whatever. They just don't feel like they can become a Republican. So those independents are going to be huge. I think there's more independents now in Frederick County than either party combined. So what is the plan to win these independents over?
Yeah, well, what's really nice is that our whole plan to victory is nonpartisan. It is not a Republican or Democrat issue to want to keep more money in your pocket. It's not a Republican or Democrat issue to want to feel safe in your community. And it's not a Republican or Democrat issue to want world-class education that does not indoctrinate their children. And so these are all things that sell really well with independents. Safe communities, strong schools, and more money in your pocket, meaning less taxes. We just need to get out, mobilize our volunteers, mobilize our candidates, and get out the vote. It's that simple. And we haven't been doing that the last 8 years.
We've had a historically low turnout for the primary that just transpired. We've got to get people engaged. There's just no doubt about it. People need to vote. They need to understand that their vote does matter, that some elections are settled by less than 20 votes.
Even better than 20 votes. Back in 2022, there was a county council race that was decided by a single vote in Frederick County. District 3 was decided by one singular vote after a recount. There was a number of races just this year in the Republican primary across the state that they were decided, again, by a few votes. One or two households that decide to go out to vote could change the election.
Just in the county next to you in Washington County, the district attorney, or state's attorney as it's called in Maryland, their race was determined by 27 votes. So elections really do matter. People have fallen under the belief that it doesn't matter who gets elected, that things are going to turn out the exact same, whether it's a Democrat or Republican or someone who has values that they agree with or don't agree with, that essentially their vote doesn't matter. What is your response to that sentiment?
Well, I would tell them to listen to the last 28 minutes of this podcast. Listen about the different ideologies, the stark contrast between where our party, the Republican Party, is going and where the Democrat Party is going. One is campaigning for all those things that are nonpartisan, and the other is trying to grow the size of government and make that a part of your everyday life. Look, I don't know about you. I don't really like when people tell me what to do. I've always been stubborn, always will be stubborn, and I have a lot more enjoyment when I can do what I want to do without interjection from the government. And so I think that's something that a lot of other people feel the same way about.
And I think most independents and most moderate Democrats feel the exact same way. And that is a good strategy, because we know the DSA and the far left liberals do not want to leave people alone, and they do not want to leave money in their pockets. You know, you talked about the Nordic, by the way, the whole Nordic socialism thing, that is an absolute red herring. It doesn't exist. They themselves don't call themselves socialists, but even in the countries that we would even call socialist, they pay 80% of their salary in taxes. There's no DSA kid coming out of college who's going to go, yeah, I want to give 80% of my money to the government while they interfere in my daily life.
I wonder if some of these young DSA members would still be members of the DSA if they went to trade school and were making good money doing HVAC, carpentry, or any other trade that right now is paying really, really good money. I highly doubt it.
Mason, if you look at the statistics, 65% of the members of the DSA are either more than college educated, graduate level educated, and 64% are underemployed. That's what makes up the DSA. People who are envious of other people's salaries and what other people have accomplished, and they're sitting at home with their, general whatever, gender studies degree or what have you. If it ends in the word studies, it's not a good degree. Okay. Gender studies, African American studies, Asian American studies, whatever. It's not going to pay the bills.
Right. Because if it's not studies, then it usually ends in something like engineering, medicine, software. It's an actual skill.
There is literally a deficit in engineering, electrical engineering, structural engineering. There is so many deficits right now that companies are literally losing their minds because for every 5 boomers that retire, 2 new people come in the field.
Yeah.
Think about that. 5 boomers are retiring, 2 new people coming into the field. They don't have enough engineers.
And that brings us back.
Oh, by the way, an engineer starts off at about $170,000 a year. Yeah. Electrical, more, 200, 220, something like that.
And that brings us back to what those universities that we were talking about earlier were saying is that they are recognizing, and they recognize that that essentially it's turned now future generations away, that they have willingly allowed, because it used to be that universities would monitor the number of degrees and would allow certain degrees based upon need in the economy. They actually really looked at that so that their graduates had a future, and they realized the damage that it has caused both to an entire generation of Americans, the damage it's caused to their reputations, and you also can see it with the Democratic Party, with what we were talking about earlier, where the Democratic Party has played a game of socialism light for so long that now that it has bred essentially a group of individuals who said, we've believed what you've said our entire life, it led us the wrong way. So now we are going to go very extreme. And to Mark's point, the more research you do into it, the more you realize that it seems to be individuals, young adults, who basically made bad decisions, oftentimes because of the lies they were told. In a sense, all they're really trying to do is to find a way to deal with the consequences of the lies that they bought into.
For some of these folks in the DSA, the sun is beginning to set, and they don't have someone to blame for their bad actions. They made a number of decisions that were not conducive to living in our society. They didn't make decisions that would allow them to start a family, buy a home, and they're looking for someone to blame other than themselves for that thing. So I think you're certainly correct on that.
And who do they blame? They blame the people that were most successful in our society and bring the most jobs. Millionaires, billionaires, people who actually have done something with their lives. They made correct choices. I'm sure they made mistakes too, and they blew it, but they never gave up.
Everyone does make mistakes.
Yeah, and they never gave up. And now they're employing literally hundreds or thousands of people at a livable wage. Elon Musk is a perfect example of that. He's hated by the DSA, and he's hated by these socialists and these liberals because he was one of them. He was a Democrat at one point, and now he's not. And he has no problems with telling people that your life decisions have consequences.
I'll never understand the villainization of folks who become successful because they took risks. They took risks, and they worked very hard.
It's envy. It's envy.
It certainly could be. And then from those folks, you also hear the phrase "tax the rich." Well, then why would anybody take those risks and work very hard if they know that their success will not be rewarded, yet it'll be punished by having to pay more in taxes? That would not exactly incentivize me to work hard, invest in the people in my community, and create jobs.
And it's absolutely true. Businesses are leaving Maryland in droves. They're leaving Maryland in droves. They cannot stand the tax and spend Democrats and what they're doing to these businesses. They're literally driving them out of the state.
And who would have thought 10 or 15 years ago that West Virginia would be eating our lunch on economic development? I would have called you crazy. 15 years ago, I would have been 7 years old, but yet I still would have been calling you crazy to say that West Virginia was going to eat our lunch on economic development. It's really absurd. I can't believe it's happening. And that's something that we really, really need to be wary of.
Here's another example, Mason, of how gullible Democratic voters can be. Governor Moore says that the state of Maryland is struggling as bad as it is because the federal government and Trump especially, of course, he's got Trump derangement syndrome. He blames Trump for the lack of federal jobs and the income coming in. The only problem he has with that is Virginia, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, who all are dealing with the exact same situation, even Delaware, they all have a surplus. They're all doing very well economically. Maryland sits alone in the Mid-Atlantic region for being in the gutter financially.
And we're in the gutter in the regulation department as well. That's really what it comes down to. When you make it more difficult to start a business, run a business, maintain a business, and create jobs, people really aren't going to start a business in your state. They're going to look elsewhere. And yet again, we have states surrounding us on every single side that make it easier to start, maintain, and run a business, whether that's Pennsylvania, West Virginia, or even Virginia, right? You wouldn't take some of those places as a place that you would want to start a business. But yet that's what we've seen. We've seen Maryland lose out on a number of big time jobs, big time investment in our state for those other places. It's really disheartening. And I really think that the state of Maryland and our counties need to take a look at that and learn.
It's been fantastic speaking with you. So thank you for joining us. But before we wrap it up, do have to ask you about a very, very important local issue. Which is that the recent rabid beaver attack in Cunningham Falls.
Absolutely.
What is the update? We must know.
There was actually 2 attacks.
There were 2. Yes, I believe that we have it under control. I haven't seen any more rabid beavers in the news recently, so I think we have it under control. But I know that our parks folks and the DNR folks do a great job of what they do, and I trust their ability to get that maintained and taken care of so that people can go back to enjoying the park they know and love.
Absolutely.
Listen, the only beaver that I want to see is the one that's about 60 miles south on 81 when I get my brisket at Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's, talk about a capitalistic dream. Buc-ee's is it.
Yes,
absolutely.
You can get brisket and gas and anything that you can get at Walmart. I mean, come on, it's unbelievable, dude. That is the
Why
American
go anywhere
dream.
else?
Hey, did you see, Mason, speaking of which, did you see the highlights from the World Cup and all the people coming over here from across Europe and how blown away they were by places like Buc-ee's and Walmart and things like that? It really gives you a good feeling to know the Europeans are admitting more and more. They're like, look, we were lied to. We were lied to for years. This country is amazing.
And to see that online throughout the World Cup, that people coming from foreign countries to see the World Cup, to watch their team, to see them appreciate things that we enjoy every single day and don't think twice about, really just shows you how great of a country we have.
And how ungrateful some of us are as Americans.
Absolutely.
Well, Mason, we really appreciate you being on the show. You're an excellent guest, and we really enjoy having you. You got to promise to come back on as the general election gets nearer.
Absolutely. You guys have my phone number anytime.
Well, thank you, Mason. We appreciate you.
You got it.
This has been Mark Flynn from Mid-Maryland Votes. With me, as always, is my awesome co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we want to thank Mason Carter again for coming on the show. Hey, if you liked what you saw, like it, share it with a friend or an enemy. We don't discriminate.
Maybe Frederick County's future won't ultimately be decided by Democrats or Republicans. Maybe it'll be decided by the growing number of people who don't want either label. But independents and moderates can only have political power when they actually use it. Learn who these candidates are, question them, challenge your own side once in a while, and then vote. Because if the middle doesn't participate, somebody else will happily make that decision for you. Thank you for joining us on Mid-Maryland Votes, and we'll see you next time.